And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Valley of the Judged. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me is my good brother here in the temple, the man of distorted illumination, and my colleague in our monthly adventures, good brother Monarch.
Something I have learned these past few weeks that is weirdly uplifting to the spirits is every part of the world seems to have designated a certain section of their country to the people who fuck sheep. I don't know why this is so universal no matter where you go. But it's like deep down we're kind of all the same that way.
Do you know what the difference is between the Rolling Stones and a Scottish farmer?
What?
Rolling Stone says, "Hey, you, get off of my cloud." Scottish farmer says, "Hey, McLeod, get off of my you." Thank you, I'll be here all week. In fact, I'll be here every day because this is my monastery. But, obviously last week we wrapped up our look at Titan Effect, which I think we can summarize as what's there is really good, but the power system definitely struggles because it's using something it wasn't designed for.
That part I kind of had to concede to you because I'm not familiar enough with Savage itself to comment too deeply on that. But there was a lot of good there.
Which is fair. And for this week, it is our requisite between season one shot before we tackle what we're going to be doing next, which I will get into in a bit. But everybody loves dwarves, and everybody loves the fact that if you ain't rockin' stone, you ain't going home. So, how about covering a game that's all about them, and about digging? Because Dwarf Fortress up in this motherfucker all day, every day. Just remember, stay away from boat murdered. And just to make sure I double check, the dig is available for purchase. It is $10 on DriveThruRPG, which I'd say is somewhat reasonable given the page count of about 83. In the YouTube version of this, I will have the DriveThruRPG linked in the description. But the first thing that we have is a prologue story, which obviously that kind of thing we're skipping, but it is appreciated. And then we get to the introduction proper. The Dig is a light role-playing game made for 2 players or more. Light because, while it has most of the qualities of a traditional RPG, character creation, dice rolling, modifiers, and so on, it's more about narrative than number crunching. I'll get into this another time, but whenever I hear the whole, "oh, this is more about narrative than about numbers," my mind always goes back to that one meme about mecha anime. Unlike other mecha anime, this one is about the characters. I get that this is going to be a bit more narrativist.
Yeah, I've seen that remark before in regards to mecha anime. In my head, I'm like, what mecha anime are they talking about? There's so many about characters. There've always been so many about characters.
That's why that line has become a meme.
Yeah.
Because it's often said by people who assume that mecha is a glorified toy commercial. Which it's not. It hasn't been since the 70s. It's a glorified music commercial. since it was record companies that were really paying the bills, especially in the 80s. Record companies and plastic model companies. That's where a lot of the money was coming from. Which is why you started seeing more banger ass soundtracks, even if some of them were a little more pop leaning. You know, because the sound team was actually getting more of the budget. But, and I don't know, maybe one of these days we'll talk about Star Child. Except there wouldn't be a whole lot of meat on the bones. This is just the reason I bring this up is that this is a pet peeve where I've seen some people act like being more narrativist is this unique and radical thing. Maybe you could have said that in like 2003. Not sure you can say that in the year of our Lord 2025. And this game came out in 2016, so you still couldn't say it. Yeah. But the dig will apparently last an hour or two, and while a campaign can be built out of the stories, each session works perfectly well as its own gaming experience. So we are dealing with something that could, in theory, be used for beer and pretzels kind of one-shots. Which is why it's going to be light on the setting. This is one of those cases where it's not emphasizing a setting, it's emphasizing a vibe. Of course, right after that, it goes into the what is a role-playing game, which I've mentioned we always skip. But I will note this. In a game of The Dig, the players work together to tell improvised stories of humor and excitement. You are dwarves in a medieval fantasy setting. All action begins in the Homes, a vast underground civilization where dwarves are reclaiming lost mines, excavating long-lost cave neighborhoods, investigating caverns forgotten an age ago, or constructing great works of art. But taking on such feats of legend requires more than just a sweeping beard and grim resolve. Each project needs the connections, goods, hard work, and skill available to a dwarf of the Homes if it's to be seen through to completion. Will it be a grand success, winning its makers hordes of wealth, fame, and a reasonable retirement? Or will it be another humdrum bit of work polluting the declining society of the dwarves and earning you nothing but an ashamed head-shaking from your peers? Once the venture, the overarching goal, is established, the game is played over 5 rounds. The first, the opening round, is a simple setting of the scene and introduction of the character. The middle 3 story rounds represent the bulk of the action, your attempts to gather the social capital, material resources, and the craft skills required to complete the venture. The 5th and final round is the finale, representing the close of story. This epilogue is your last chance to right any mistakes made along the way and to perfect your project. All actions are resolved using a simple roll mechanic using a d6, but the appendices provide options for using your dice of choice and varying the rules to fit your style. If you want to get into the game immediately, there's the quick start option in Appendix D, and a gander at playing the game is recommended but not necessary. Then I go into an overview of the setting. We will obviously be skipping the setting part, but I do like that they ended the introduction with saying, "And happy digging." And if any of you are thinking of the cover of Diggy Diggy Hole by Windrose, we're right there with you because we were making that joke too.
I didn't even know about the original until I'd already heard the Windrose cover.
Yeah, and I have a sneaking suspicion a lot of people think it was an original song by Windrose.
But yes, next we get into preparing to play.
Mm-hmm.
So before play can begin, you need a few things. Character sheets, which will be shown a bit later. It bears emphasizing that the dig is all about great, fantastical stories, sometimes ordinary things. Opening a business, creating art, and the like are all things we do every day, but in a fantastical setting, they take on a new grand. Excuse me. So all good stories are intertwined with desire. what do these characters want and how are they going to get it, what might stop them. I will skip over this rest of this paragraph because this is basically just a little bit more fluff we don't really need here. So the stories unfold over 5 rounds. The opening round, the finale is round 2, which is going to bother me,
Mm-hmm.
and the 3 story rounds: social, material, and craft. In between. So the story rounds can be run in whatever order is most appropriate to the adventure and to the narrative. But the opening always goes first, and the finale last up. Okay, finale is last, even though it's the second thing they mentioned. that it's no longer bothering. Setting up your venture and its requisite rules is discussed in the story creation portion of this chapter after character creation. Games in the Dig can typically be compared to short stories rather than the novel campaign. Sanders compared the two in this way. A novel is like saying goodbye. Okay, I don't think you need me going over the differences between a short story and a novel, but that's effectively here. So we get to the character sheets. There's a blank one a little later in the book. It is concise, simple, containing all, or at least most of the details your character. We have the name, obvious. House, most dwarves belong to some familiar house or other. Cog. This is similar to a class in a more traditional games, but really isn't, but really it's your dwarf's job. Through their cog, your character will have specific skills and connections that allow them to get things done when the time comes. Not all professions have a cog, though, so your dwarf may not belong to one. Cogs also inform your character's fears the most, or what your character fears the most. Then we got skills. Instead of a myriad of skills, abilities in the Dig have been distilled into 3 sweeping categories corresponding to the 3 story rounds: social, material, and craft. Your dwarf will be an expert at one of these things, lacking in another, and common in a third. Then you got your appearance and history, and then traits. Each house and cog has a description during character. Those will be used to fill in this box along with a few touches of your own. It is a summary of what your character is like and what things can be invoked for a narrative bonus, which will be explained later. These will be spent as the game is played, are refreshed with each new session. Then fear. Taken directly from your cog, this is the main thing your character is afraid of and comes into play when you fail a roll. Points of expertise. There is no leveling up in the Dig, but a tally is kept of your successes for later games. This is expressed in points of expertise and can be spent to re-roll the die during the game. The number in this box starts at 0 and cannot go above 3. You begin each game with this many points of expertise. And advantages. During the opening round, you can use your free action to create an advantage on a successful roll. Jot down what you were able to do here and cash it in later for a free success. And complications. Whenever you tie a roll, a complication is generated. This describes how, although the action was successful, there was some kind of snag that might cause some conflict in the later on. Note this here as it must be resolved before the game ends. Complications are resolved either by using them when a failed roll occurs or during the final round. The way this image cuts into the text really bothers me. I don't like it.
That's good old word wrap. But then we have the character sheet. It's a decent one-pager. This is one case where a one-page character sheet is not something I have an issue with.
It is perfectly acceptable.
Mm-hmm. But then it talks again about how, unlike other RPGs, it's not going into a bunch of skill lists and the like, which is fine. But hopefully we have some guidance as far as potential skills, traits, and whatnot, because otherwise that's going to be a problem.
I will give you a quick heads up. Do not click the shorelessskies.com link to the character sheet, because it just takes you to a page that doesn't exist, and then you back up into the PDF and lose your spot like I just did.
Ah.
So don't click that link.
Yeah, but after that, we go into the house. Each house has a set of traits. And then we have the particular houses with their own motto and their own traits. Like House Barrowspawn's motto is, put that down, please, darling. Their traits are upright, detail-oriented, well-connected, wealthy, miner's connection. Then we have House Firetooth, House Leftbrow, House Grimroot, House Orsney, and right at the back of it is Other, for those who want something a bit more wild card. After that is choosing a cog, which does add relevant traits as well as the fear. The particular cogs are Forgers, self-explanatory, Shapers, the stonemasons, Setters, the jewelers, Flangers, who I guess could be described as a kind of police of sorts, since it says many dwarves don't actually belong to a cog. They are independent craft. Oops, that's the wrong one. The clangers are an odd bunch. In days when punctuality is undervalued and few dwarves are ever in a hurry, the clangers are there to keep everyone on time.
Oh, so they're project managers.
Mm-hmm.
Fear tardiness.
What, like the watchdog in the Phantom Toll booth? But then we have miners, self-explanatory. Hoarders, also self-explanatory. Keepers, basically lore masters. Fargoers, which I guess I could say is their scouts as well as spies. And none. Then appearance and history, self-explanatory there. Then personality traits, also self-explanatory.
There is a nice little table here with a good number of sample character traits.
Mm-hmm. Then we have skill assignment. There are 3 general skills. You're an expert in one, which adds +1 to your die result. You are lacking in another, which you get a -1. And common in a third, which doesn't do anything to your roll. The 3 skills are social, material, and craft. So you'll have +1 in 1, 0 in 1, and -1 in 1. On a d6, so that is going to be impactful. After that, it's set in stone, so that's it. Your character creation is more or less done. And then we have a little page for a quick character creator. So you could use a d6 roll to determine house, cog, appearance, and then a few male and female dwarf names. But then it goes into the idea of the venture, which there's 3 methods for establishing the venture. Pre-written outlines, your own, or actually no, just 2 of them. Pre-written outlines and your own story. So I don't know why it says these 3 methods. It's kind of weird.
Perhaps an artifact that just never got edited out.
That would be the best guess. But when it comes to the ventures, there's also a bit of a house rule for scaling TN. The base target number for all rolls is 4. A full explanation will be coming later. For more of a challenge, you may wish to raise the base TN. Which, the house rule there is nice, but why is this in this section? But after that,
that's a little weird.
Yeah, but the steps when it comes to doing a venture is first choosing what the goal is, and we do have some sample ventures on page 25, as well as sample opening round prompts, which is the motivation, i.e., why you're doing something, or how you're setting the scene. Then choose story round goals, which again, the main action is during the middle 3 story rounds. One of each for each skill: social, material, and craft. Hang on, let me. Okay, just had to make sure I didn't pull that out of my ass. The social rounds, and the material round and the craft round is just how you're getting stuff for whatever goal you have.
Each one does have 2 separate charts, one for just some sample social rounds and suggested player actions that they could possibly be taking.
Mm-hmm.
All very nice to have.
Yep. Then, some random adventures as a bit of an aside. Then rolling venture. Roll your 6-sided die 3 times, one for the noun, one for the adjective, and one for the verb. And then once again for the motivation. And that's if you want to do full random adventures, because you can also roll for social goal, material goal, and craft goal. Or you can do the more grand campaign approach called the Grand Venture, which is a series of 3 ventures tied together in some narrative sense. But then and hang on a second, because my recording setup wanted to be a dick for a moment and not give me any bitrate. Sorry about that, folks. I think we should be back at it proper. But the next chapter is, of course, playing the game. And then we have a sidebar immediately on action resolution, which is basically rolling a die. The target number is 4. You roll 1d6, modify the result based on your skill, and if you have a narrative bonus, you get a further +1. Compare that to the TN. And after that, it goes into the different rounds and the outline of them. So you're only ever rolling one die at any given point. And given the fact that it talks about passing the die, you only need 1 die, period. Though, let's be honest, nobody's going to pass the die because everybody's superstitious.
Also, we're talking D6s here. Even if you don't play tabletop RPG, there's a chance you have a D6 floating around for some reason.
Oh yeah, and there's also an option on doing GM-less role-playing, which I think this game could support, as well as the do's and don'ts when you're the acting player.
Yeah.
The last player to hold the die becomes the first player to hold the die for the next round. I'm a little bit disappointed that they didn't have any mention that they didn't refer to rolling the dice as casting the rune. And Dragon saying, name a common board game without D6s. Um,
Life.
yeah. He says besides life.
There's got to be a number of them.
Oh yeah. Chutes and ladders. Connect 4. It is technically a board, it's just vertical. Battleship.
Blue.
You know. Sorry.
I'm sure I played this one weird zombie thing where you're putting tiles together once years back. I can't remember the name of.
Probably Zombicide.
Does Clue have a D6?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I've not played Clue in so long. I mostly just remember the movie these days.
Mm-hmm.
Point in case, that is a very easy thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah. But even with that, there is the option of degrees of success, i.e., if you roll a 5 or 6, it's a success, and a 7 or 8 is an extravagant success, and a 1 through 3 is a failure, and a 0 is an outright failure.
Have we come across a way to get 8?
I think the only way you could get 8 is if you have the +1 modifier from skills and have a narrative bonus, and you roll a 6.
Like, I don't remember coming across narrative bonuses yet.
It was covered briefly earlier, i.e. if you've got a narrative bonus for a given roll, then you can add +1 to the roll. And extravagant success is basically this game's critical. You succeed and something else good happens, or something extra. If you tie, it's a complication, as we mentioned before. And we also have a die roll for potential botches if you roll 0, which again it would be possible to do if you rolled a snake eye and you were using your -1 skill for that. But, and of course, afterwards you pass the die, it goes into a sample round, then goes into the finale. And then the closing part of it, as well as character advancement. In order to advance, you have to have 1 development in the history box of your character sheet, and consider modifying traits for that. You also get bonus for success. If you deem your venture 1, each player should add +1 to the expertise box. And I should note when it comes to the finale round, you have to resolve complications if they haven't, and how many failed rounds and what effect it's had on the venture. So the finale round is more of like the post-session part of a session. Or the downtime period. And after that, we have a little map of the homes and the various places within them. And then it's going into setting. Then we have appendices for the inspirations. Dwarf Fortress, Fate Core, which I definitely get the Fate Core vibes, especially with the whole invoking traits. Hobbit Tales and Cubicle 7, fair. And then some of the house rules. Although, should it really be called house rules when it's in the book? Shouldn't it? I feel like
optional rules. Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I always was of the opinion that house rules should be, things done in-house.
Yeah, when they're coming out with those in the base book, yeah, it's optional rules. It's a separate thing.
I know it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but
it's entirely pedantic.
Yes. But everyone should know by now I am extremely petty. But there's also the possibility of a chance die where you roll 2d6 instead of 1. The second die is the chance die. If it lands on a 6 and only a 6, the action succeeds no matter what. Which is an interesting idea, but I'd raise the stakes. If the chance die rolls a 1, it auto fails. If it rolls a 6, it auto succeeds.
A game master is under house rules.
Yep. There's also more options if you want to roll more dice, and what the base TNs should be, and what modifiers should be. Then we have
that just seems kind of pointless.
Then we have the option of skill choice. For those who want to be able to use the 3 skills that are available in unorthodox ways. Then going into the game sequence and the quick start, along with a few characters, along with a few ventures and some sample characters. And we do have an index at the end, though we do not have bookmarks. So I know this was a brief episode, but that's more or less what the dig is. I know we didn't. I know this did a whole lot of skimming, but for a game this kind of narrativist, there's not a whole lot of meat on the bones, which makes it perfect for a one-shot. I think the dig as a game is fine. I do think it veers a little bit too close to Fate Core and some of the problems that Fate Core has, especially regarding traits, for my liking. Like, I get Fate Core as a major inspiration, but just because you're inspired by it doesn't mean you have to make the same mistake.
No, whereas I'm not really that familiar with the Fate Core, so I can't compare to that. What I can say, though, is I know this is supposed to be a light game, something you can just pick up, do a session of, and be done, but even compared to some of the other games we've done like that, it just doesn't feel like there's much here.
Do you suppose
it's well put together?
Do you suppose that very specific round structure leads to that feeling?
I certainly think that doesn't help.
What probably also doesn't help is that we covered a certain game that also had a very strict beginning, middle, and end section. In fact, it's been our whipping boy for the last few months.
I still argue that it's not even a game. Aside, you do have a game here, though, so I don't think that'd be a fair comparison.
No.
I don't even think the strict setup of the rounds is necessarily a problem. And like I've said, I don't think it's really doing anything particularly bad I can just point my finger at. I just don't think there's really much here to grab onto.
Which is
I can't
fair.
see myself ever doing more than one game of this. I'm not even just talking like a one shot, and maybe a couple years do another one shot. No, it's just one shot. I think you kind of get the experience from that.
Yeah. And I think that's ultimately the issue. That, for lack of a better term, there isn't enough game in the game. Because of that structure and their... Now, granted, when it comes to structure setups, there are ways to do it. L5R's modules often have a 3-act setup of setup, focus, and strike. Obviously, Legend Edition has the 4-act structure with our approach. You know, preparation, exploration, encounter, and downtime, as well as the fifth option of fanfare. But they're broad strokes kind of things, and I'm not entirely sure if focusing on adventure and doing is something that provides enough potential variety, especially with it being so specific to dwarves in holds and wanting to avoid combat.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it feels like they started with an idea for a game, created like the initial base idea, and they just went, "Yeah, we're good. We can stop here."
There's a lot of narrativist games that have come around that have this problem of coming off unfinished and expecting the table to fill in the blanks. This isn't as bad as some ones I've seen, but it is enough for me to raise my eyebrow.
Yeah.
So, if I were to do the grading system for this game, I'd probably end up going with playable for the dig. There's some cute ideas here and there, but there's not enough meat on the bones, I think. Even if it's designed for one-shots, I can't see myself revisiting it multiple times.
Yeah.
I'd
almost put it a spot below playable.
The spot below playable is caution.
Yeah. I think caution might be where I put it.
Oh. What makes you want to go with caution?
It's just that kind of lack of much of anything. Like, again, it feels unfinished. I do think playable is a good spot.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I say I'm tempted to put it to caution. But at the same time, like, it is playable. I just can't really think of much of a reason to pick this up if you're going to spend money on it.
It's $10 really on DriveThruRPG. Do you think that's a fair price, or do you think that's too high?
I'd have to say too high, because as we both mentioned, you're gonna maybe play this once, and why would you ever want to it?
Yeah.
$10 for a game you're going to play once. I don't feel that's worth it.
And when it comes to the way the dig can go, maybe it's just me, but I feel like if this was not quite so limited to dwarves and dwarven homes, maybe this would have had a better chance, because there would be more opportunities to tell stories.
I think you got a great starting point for a game here.
Mm-hmm. Which definitely makes sense. Now, I know this was a bit of a short one, so let me note what we've got coming down the pipeline. So starting next week, Monarch and I will be delving into Shroud of the Ancients, which describes itself as having a D5 system. So that's something to get to whet our appetites about. And this Saturday, a bit after Cloister, I am going to be returning with him with the Adventures of the Monk and the Monarch, as we try to construct a mecha anime.
That episode ought to be up around the 5th.
Mm-hmm. And of course, this Saturday, but just before that, I will be doing the Cloister of the Dice, though it's going to be our monthly one-shot, this time covering Beacon. which I will not be GMing. That will be GM'd by Tim Gonzalez, who's been on the channel in the past. So that's what we've got coming down the pipe, and I hope some of you stick around for those future plans. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.